I am Dr. Chris Howard, the 8th President of Robert Morris University, and I am delighted to be here on such a glorious day. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out on this late Friday afternoon, and most especially our speaker, Steve Smith, who we're going to hear about more in a few minutes, who said this, and I quote, "Chris, if it wasn't for this speech, I would not be here. I would be on a beach." So don't feel bad that you. I know we appreciate you being here, but even our speakers are like, I almost didn't show. But anyway, Steve, we're happy to have you here. You're going to hear more about his impressive career from Dean LeBlanc in just a second. So it will become readily apparent why we wanted Steve to speak in a few moments here at RMU, but let me take a minute to talk for you all why I think the CEO of Plus Consulting might want you to speak at Robert Morris University. We've always said that RMU means business, but these days RMU also means cybersecurity, and I think we got some top secret colonials here, maybe. Top secret colonials in the house, there we go. RMU means software engineering. RMU means information systems. RMU means cloud computing. RMU means data analytics. I think you get the point. Our faculty, many of whom are today, are experts in these fields, and we are graduating students who can make an immediate impact in the workplace, and I'm proud to announce that Steve has hired several of them in the past. And because they are RMU graduates, they don't just have the technical know-how. They can communicate, they can collaborate, they understand what it means to work hard with people from different cultures and from different backgrounds. Our wonderful line is that our engineers and IT people look at your shoes when they talk to you, not their own shoes. So they've been educated enough to know at least look out. So they're very good and very outspoken. In short, they are leaders. So at the risk of putting words into the mouth of our guest speaker, I think that we may be why someone like Steve Smith would want to speak here at RMU. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Marie Leblanc, Dean of the School of Communications and Information Systems. Marie came to RMU in 2015 from Kent State, where she had served as an interim dean of the College of Communications and Information Systems, Communication and Information, and director of the School of Visual Communication Design. She previously taught at Indiana University, Purdue, the other IUP, I guess, at University of Fort Wayne. She earned a Master's of Fine Arts from Bowling Green State University, a Master of Arts from Purdue University, and a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Louisiana State University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marie Leblanc.
Well, welcome everyone on this sunny Friday afternoon, Friday the 13th. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Steve Smith. He's a highly motivated, creative, versatile technology industry executive. He has worked with experienced IT operations, team building, and IT mergers and acquisitions. Though the majority of his work has been focused on these primary businesses, he's also worked with other businesses and established a myriad of companies. And these even include a children's toy company and a national event management business. On his own, and since the age of 15, Steve put himself through both high school and college in the mountains of New Hampshire, and I think he might be telling us a little bit about that today. He then moved to Pittsburgh in 1991, where he got his master's from Carnegie Mellon. After obtaining his education, Steve honed his management and selling skills by learning from top industry executives at Andersen Consulting, Ernst & Young, PricewaterhouseCoopers, among others. He then leveraged these enhanced skills to start Plus. Now an international leader in Microsoft Consulting, customer relationship management, and security services with over 150 employees in the United States and Australia. It is my pleasure to welcome Steve Smith.
Thank you so much, folks. I really do appreciate the chance to be here today. Just want to step aside and see if the mic's working okay. Is that all right? Sound good? Okay. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here. Dr. Howard and I have had the opportunity to get to know each other a bit through some business associations, and I think the world of Dr. Howard and really what you've done for this university is just phenomenal, and I think everybody in the Pittsburgh community sees that. So kudos sincerely to you and your leadership. You students don't probably recognize or realize the incredible opportunity you have working under the leadership of such a great guy. So kudos to you, sir, and I'm honored to be here. Very much appreciate the chance. So the discussion that Dr. Howard asked me to have is to tell a little bit about my life story, which is kind of a little awkward for someone to talk about your history. One, because if you're talking about your life story, it alludes to the fact it might be over soon. So let's hope that's not the case, and I got a lot more to go. But I think what happens with people is I tell them a little bit about my background, and I throw out a comment here and there, and my wife is actually in the background. Raise your hand there, Alyssa. A good way to capture this point I'm trying to make is that when I've been dating Alyssa for some period of time, she would hear this random comment about my background and then that random comment. And at some point, she assumed I was a complete idiot or a compulsive liar or something. And she couldn't wait for the opportunity to meet my parents to confirm that the wacky history that I have was actually legitimate. And so she married me after that. So worked out pretty well. So a little bit of background on myself. I grew up in New England, originally outside Boston. My parents were both school teachers, and we had a pretty good lifestyle, pretty humble beginnings overall, if you will, being the two public school teachers. But a pretty good balanced life. But life happens, and as happens to so many of us, my folks got divorced when I was in my teens, and lots of people deal with divorce in different ways. And my way of dealing with it was to bail. And I moved out at age 15 and moved to the mountains of New Hampshire, several hours away. And so I've been on my own since I was 15. I didn't think that sounded strange until I now have a 15-year-old son in my house. And hell no is he ready to move out on his own. So it sounds a lot weirder today than it has in the past to me. I've been on my own since I was 15. I signed up for high school up in the mountains of New Hampshire. And you might imagine I wasn't the most financially well-positioned student, even amongst the students in a mountain town like I grew up in there. And so I have strange parts of my history where I cross-country skied to school and where I rode my bike to school. I was 15 when it got really cold. You find ways to get by. I was too young to have a driver's license, so I bought a car for $250. 73 Plymouth Duster, 6 shades of Bondo green. And I drove that until someone reminded me, in this case, the gods reminded me that you need to put oil in a car. I didn't know that before then. Seized the engine, and what do? I don't have a penny to fix said car, and I would get arrested if I was caught driving said car. So I just left it, and I still haven't seen that car to this day. I just hitchhiked home. So those are the sorts of weird stories, I guess, that kind of define a person, I think, but it also builds a lot of independence and work ethic. And so when you're trying to provide for yourself, you do whatever you have to. I had probably more jobs by the time I was out of college than most people have in their entire lifetime. I was averaging 4, 5, 6 jobs at a time. But they were always, most of them were pretty cool jobs. I mean, I did the busboy waiter thing. Not so exciting, but I also ran a windsurfing school for a while. I taught skiing. I ran a snowboarding school. Worked at a dive shop. If you see there's a theme there of outdoor sports, extreme sports, endurance sports, that was kind of always something I was passionate about and certainly still am. But if you can find a way to do something like that and make a buck, then that's the perfect alignment of stars in my mind and my world. I got good enough in the sports world that I got sponsored by a couple companies for snowboarding, and got picked up by Oakley, Burton, Moreau, and Sims all at different points in time, which sounds really cool until you realize I still can't afford to eat because sponsorship means free gear. So what do you do when you get free gear? You sell the free gear and turn it into money to eat. So I did that for a few years and worked out pretty well. I'd get 6 or 7 snowboards a year, and I only needed one. So the rest were turned into cash in creative ways. So that's kind of the path that I was on, and again, it taught a whole lot of work ethic. The thing I loved doing back in those days was I loved selling. In that case, I was selling skis and sports equipment and what have you. And I always say everything I've learned about in sales, I really learned selling skis. It's a much more accelerated sales cycle than the stuff I do now, but the principles are fundamentally the same, where you're, quickly establishing some rapport and then, selling a premium priced product. There has to be the personal interaction and level of trust and commitment that it takes to to execute. If you can do all that within an hour or two in a ski shop, then, and you're selling a $1,000 pair of skis, the concepts aren't too different than what we do today in our technology consulting business. But I'll come back to that in more detail in a moment. So the next step for me was getting into college, and I did the thing that I was kind of personally passionate about. I went to, study phys ed. And so I continued in the mountains, went to a branch of the University of New Hampshire called Plymouth State. I bet not many have heard of it, but it's way up in the mountains of New Hampshire. And I went to Plymouth State College, went there for 4 years, got my incredibly valuable degree in phys ed and minor in dance. So with that amazing coupling of background, I really found I had a limitless choice of really high revenue generating opportunities in front of me, which is why I decided to go to graduate school right after. And so that was actually a kind of a, joking aside, it was an inflection point where do you want to continue cobbling together 6 or 7 jobs in order to save enough money to just get by? And I've been doing that for a long time on my own at that point. I'm coming out of college. I've been on my own since I was 15. That's actually quite a long time to be on your own and just getting by. And so I decided I was going to make a change. I was going to give up on the sports world being something that I might be able to provide for myself with, and give up on the mountains. And I looked at it as selling my soul to the corporate gods. It's truly how I looked at it. And, all of a sudden getting feedback here. Does it sound okay still? Step over? Better? Okay. So all of a sudden, I found myself in a position where I was going to change things in a radical way, and so I applied to a whole boatload of grad schools. And I got accepted to Bucknell University, which you may know of. I was pretty excited about that. Went down there, met all my professors, and that was 2 weeks before school started, and like 7,000 people must have said no to Carnegie Mellon that year, because just before school started, I got a letter from CMU saying, hey, everybody else that was cool said no, so you're in. So I came to Pittsburgh sight unseen. I had the mentality of I could do anything for my career, even live in Pittsburgh for 2 short years. As the image and the reputation of this town back then, this is early 90s, was not so positive, to be honest with you. It was the end of the steel mills, and nothing after had really revitalized this community. And the image was certainly, reaching the mountains of New Hampshire, that's a place I didn't want to spend my future. Yet here I am 30 years later. So something's changed. Either my mindset changed or the town changed, and I think it's a combination of both. So Pittsburgh's been fantastic to me. It's been a wonderful place to raise a family, and a wonderful place to build a business and a career. And I could not be more appreciative of what this town has offered to me. So that's a little bit about how I ended up in Pittsburgh. So from there, I did have options, legitimate ones this time, coming out of graduate school with Carnegie Mellon, a big brand name, if you will, and now finally on my resume. And so I applied to a bunch of positions. And I think a good visual to keep in mind is coming from that background that I did and trying to enter the really aggressive, hardcore corporate America, big consulting companies, which is, I was very fixated. That's what I wanted to do. Like, in my mind, that was, the path I was going to be on. And it took graduate school, in my case, to really lock that down. Obviously, phys ed and dance is not what I'm doing here today, although you may see a nice jig later, who knows? And so I applied to, a heck of a lot of businesses. And, not having a ton of direction on how to do that, I lived alone in Oakland, and I'm looking for a wall that's tall enough. There's not a wall in this building tall enough to represent one of the walls in my apartment. And I covered it to the point where you could not see any of the color paint with rejection letters for the amount of companies that I applied to. And literally hundreds of rejection letters. So that means hundreds of denials, hundreds of times of being rejected. And eventually, all that did work out. This is coming out when there's, not many career options. Economies go up and down, and this is not a good time for the economy in our country. And I was fortunate enough to finally get in with Anderson Consulting, which at the time was the largest technology consulting business, actually tax audit and consulting business in the world. And I got the entry-level position there, and I was elated. And then at the time, again, they were the big boys internationally. And I remember going to the university. They actually bought a university, a women's college in Chicago. And they kicked all the women out and brought their recruits every year into the world's largest consulting company to be indoctrinated, like create the group think sort of thing. It was a really cool experience. And so they set like a group of 200 of us around a room and said, you're the this month's recruits. And they said, look to your left, look to your right. And so, we're all like eager beavers looking up at this, person talking to us. And they said, you all came out of your Carnegie Mellons or whatever they are around the world, because the woman beside me is from the Basque region in Spain, and the person on my left is from the Ukraine or what have you. And this is like phenomenal experience for this, kid from the mountains in New Hampshire now. And we're all like becoming friendly and stuff. And they said, look to the left, look to the right. One of the three of you will be standing in 12 months. The other two we will spit out. And a lot of people would go, well, that's really mean and insulting and disrespectful. And this group of people and the culture and the mentality and the work ethic of people coming out of the schools at that time was freaking awesome. And everybody's like, that's going to be me. I'm going to be standing. Screw you. We don't need to be friends. And I'm still built that way. I love that competitive collaboration sort of mindset and mentality. And we've really tried to do our best to maintain that 25 years later, 28 years later, whatever it is, and bring that into my business, is that you can be friends with these people, but you are also there to provide for yourself and your family. And if you can do both at the same time, then boy, you found something special. And that's called culture, and you best hold on to it and invest in it. So those sorts of moments have really kind of formed a big part of who I am, and I'm very appreciative of those experiences. So I did spend some time with Anderson Consulting, and I'll be honest with you, I job hopped a bit. I made no apologies, and I went from Anderson Consulting, and then a couple years later, I was doing pretty well there. Luckily, they hadn't figured out I sucked as a developer, and so I started selling myself as a project manager before my supervisors figured out how bad I was at the geek part of the geek, and I was better at the sales part of the geek. And so I started getting into the right positions there. Spent a couple years there, and then I moved to Ernst & Young, which probably many of you have heard of. They still use that name here. And then I left there and went to Coopers & Lybrand, which at the time was pretty big as well, and I had the opportunity to launch a big consulting practice within Coopers & Lybrand. And then I was really fortunate, sometimes luck matters in life as well. At that time, Coopers & Lybrand, a year after I was there, they gave me the state of Pennsylvania to run for the consulting practices, which was a pretty significant opportunity as a young guy in his 20s to do. And this is where I got real lucky. And then they merged with Pricewaterhouse to form what we now know as PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I was there for that merger, and as the luck of the draw would stand, I went from managing Pittsburgh to managing all of Pennsylvania at Coopers & Lybrand. And then when the merger happened, they gave me the entire East Coast of the United States. So I had the entire East Coast middle market consulting up and down the East Coast, and I was a 29-year-old guy. It was pretty cool. I was pretty excited. And the even better part of it is that I was on a compensation model where they tax and audit people who couldn't sell their way out of a box. They said, if they sell something, we'll give them a little bonus. And so I saw that, just like I was selling the snowboards. I can make money out of that. And so I ended up really focusing my energy on the sales and growing the business. And what it meant is that my compensation model that came over from Coopers & Lybrand and is now with PricewaterhouseCoopers, I was doing really well financially for the first time in my life, and it was pretty, mind-boggling and life-altering. And so what did they do in a big global firm like that? Well, they said, this guy's bringing in so much money to the organization, we better make him a partner. And so at 29 years old, they put me through the partnership admittance process, which in that world, again, this is, again, the world's largest tax audit consulting firm. They put you through like a year-long interview, and you meet with different people, and if you keep on making it through the interviews, you make it to the top dogs in the entire globe. And so I'm 29 years old. I met with one of the top dogs out of Europe, and it's a year after I started this process, and it's kind of like a rubber stamp, and I'm about to be partner. And he said, Steve, I'm not going to make you partner. And I said, okay, appreciate the candor. Why? And he said, in a very honest moment, he said, nobody in our firm's history has ever made partner before age 34. You're 29. I'm not going to be the one to break that trend. And I said, so my revenue, that's 3 times the average partner, that doesn't matter? And he said, not in my world, and it's just too big of a political rift. So I said, I appreciate the candor. I asked him one more time if there's anything I could do to, in my career to change that. And he said, get older. And I said, already? It basically meant I was going to make millions of dollars a year for you for the next 4 or 5 years until I got older. And to me, that's not like a person that's pretty much mentally built to, kick the crap out of the 2 people left and right of me isn't going to be happy just making you money for the next 5 years and getting older. And so I quit on the spot without a path. And the next day I started Plus. And so 19 years later, it's taken me literally 19 years to build my company up to the same size as it was when I left PricewaterhouseCoopers on that day. So literally we're about almost the exact same size as we were then, but it took 19 bloody years of hard work to get there. So what we do now as a company, I think I forgot to click a few times, haven't I? Yeah, who cares? I don't need slides in case you can't tell, right? So what we do now as a business is probably, hopefully very relevant to a lot of folks in the audience. I understand that most of the folks here are some flavor of technology interested or focused. So we are Plus. It is a technology consulting firm. We're headquartered here in Pittsburgh. There's about 150 folks, the majority of which are based here in Pittsburgh, although we have offices and customers literally throughout the globe. We've got physical presence in about a dozen states in the US, offices in about 3 or 4 of those locations, from Sacramento to Scottsdale to Houston, Denver, Boston, Tampa, and obviously Pittsburgh. I think I'm forgetting some places in there. And also over in Australia, we got an office in Melbourne, Australia, and Brisbane, Australia. A lot of those things, those presences in terms of physical footprints, they came through acquisitions. We've actually acquired 8 companies over the years, and that's been a really big part of our growth path and will continue to be so. We've done most of those acquisitions through almost recommendations, like the software vendors that we work with see that we're doing a great job with blank product, and they see customers that are supported by what they view to be an inferior consulting organization, and they say, hey, Plus, would you mind talking to these folks, because we don't want to risk losing our customer because these folks are not up to par. And so very often the way we've done these acquisitions has been with the recommendation or the introduction of the software vendors who we have done a good job partnering with over the years. So that's gotten us pretty far. Where we're going next is that's not fast enough or aggressive enough for us, and so we've actually hired an investment bank to go out and look for more and larger acquisitions for us to take on. And so hopefully there'll be a lot more growth coming through that avenue, i.e. M&A space, going forward. But we also have a pretty advanced sales team. Like, acquisitions is certainly one of the ways you grow. It is certainly not the only way. For Plus, there's 3 pillars of growth. 1 is acquisitions. 2 is our natural growth, our sales and marketing activities. And we've actually just made a commitment this year. We're doubling the size of our sales and marketing team, which is a big overhead cost, and hope it works. Fingers and everything else crossed. And then we also invested heavily in our partnerships. If I mentioned the partnerships lead us to business in some way, shape, or form, well, those partnerships are really valuable in our world. And so climbing and getting the right, climbing within the influence of these organizations is critically important. So the partnerships that matter most to us are Microsoft and Salesforce and vendors of that nature who are household names almost regardless of what business you're in. But in our world, there's really three major parts to the business now. We have a security practice. Typically, the work that we do in the security space is beginning with some type of friendly hacking, penetration test type work. And yes, we always get in. 100% of the time, we will get into your organization. I don't care who you are. You hire us for a pen test, we will get data. It is impossible to completely secure everything. So that's where it leads to the next part of our practice, which is doing the work to advise the leadership of said organization about what are the things that they can do to, within reason, in order to try to prevent as many of those bad people from coming in the doors. There's never a guarantee somebody won't get in, though, unfortunately. So that's our security practice, and something we've got a pretty good name for ourselves in the regional market. We also have a sales and marketing consulting services practice, or hopefully you've heard the term CRM, customer relationship management. And in that space, we've actually climbed to be a pretty significant international leader. We work with the 4 largest CRM products, Microsoft CRM, Salesforce, Sugar CRM, and Infor CRM. Those 4 products together represent the full CRM service offering that we work with. We support about 700 companies globally with their CRM solutions, so it's a very big part of our business. And it's actually where a lot of our acquisitions have come, picking up CRM businesses around the country and globe. So it's been a very big part of our business. But the largest part of our company is, I mentioned we do Microsoft CRM, but we do everything else in the Microsoft suite as well. And that's the third and biggest part of our business, is that we're one of the top Microsoft partners working with their full suite of products. So what does that mean? There's about 100,000 partners in North America for Microsoft. We're officially one of the top 50. So it's a pretty big accolade in our world. The term probably means nothing to you, but it's called the NSP, National Solutions Provider Program. And to be part of that coveted top 50 kind of gets us a seat at the table with Microsoft and gives us a leg up and advantage over our competitors, the other 100,000 that don't have such significant certifications. So it's a big, big accolade for our organization and helps us fast forward as we go forward as well. So that's a bit about Plus, and I will mention on that note, we've hired a bunch of you folks, and we want to hire a bunch more of you. I will just tell one anecdote on a recruit that we had from Bobby Moe a few years back, Max Moreau. Does anybody happen to know Max Moreau? Somebody does? Okay. Was he a class of yours, sir? Or?
Yes.
Okay. Stud, is he not? Okay. Yeah, well, I'm going to talk to him about that. So Max Moreau, and I think his brother is now at Plus as well. He's also a Bobby Moe alum, a younger brother, but younger brother has big shoes to fill. So Max is, I think, either 26 or 27 years old right now, and he runs a team of 20-something people at our company. He leads our application development team. He's just a stud. And nobody is ever going to tell anybody at Plus, you're not old enough to do blank. That's never going to happen, I guarantee it. And it's just perfect evidence, and it's Bobby and Moe alumni that run that. So we have people that are in their 20s managing people in their 40s and 50s all day, every day. And either it works or it doesn't for the people that mix. I could tell you the business is going to go on one way or the other and succeed in its own stance. So there's no, in our industry, and certainly within Plus, we have every race, creed, color, religion, flavor of person you can ever fathom in our organization. There's people praying to Allah at 1 o'clock on Friday, I think is when it happens, and there's people going to synagogue. It doesn't matter at Plus. It's a very cool industry, and if that's exciting to you, all the more reason why you'd want to consider an organization like us. We also have all the cool things you expect from a tech company. At our Carnegie-based headquarters, we got indoor basketball court and rooftop deck and industrial kitchens and every cool, fun, thing you can imagine. But those are small rewards for the fact that it takes that endless work ethic. I always say there's such cool things in the tech industry, but only the the ones with incredibly strong work ethic actually make it and survive in the long haul. It's a tough industry, and people often say, well, I want to do what you're doing. Great. It's hard, takes endless work, and the way to start, in my opinion, is to find the opportunity for internships. So we, at Plus, we have no less than a dozen interns at a time, and we have a different model on internships at Plus. And Teresa, if you could raise your hand in the back there. Teresa is with Plus. She is our Director of Employee Success. Sounds like a strange title. I said it slowly to make it clear. We commit and invest in our people. Teresa, one of the programs that she manages for our organization is our Internship Program. And the model is completely different than you've ever experienced in internships. What we do at Plus is we have people come into our organization as early as their sophomore year, but often junior year. And when they come in, and by the way, this is the second Moreau, Max Moreau's brother, I forget his name right now. Art Moreau, thank you. Art is in the same model right now, I think, where he has been interning for us for a couple of years now. And so what happens is we expect Art and any other intern to know day one, if you intern with Plus, we're not hiring you for an internship, we are hiring you. All you can do from here is fail or succeed, which you're gonna do. You're gonna have a job guaranteed 3 years from now, 2 years from now, 1 year from now, based on the fact that we hired you for that internship. But the difference is not that you have a job. The difference is that we're gonna treat you like an employee as opposed to an internship. And so we're gonna give you the training, the certification, experience, the on-the-job, real testing environment in order to prepare you for a career, not a job. And I'm a big believer of the difference. There's a big difference between all the jobs I used to have, tuning skis and teaching windsurfing, and the career I have now. But we try to treat our interns as if you're on a path for a career, and we're gonna invest in you accordingly as a result from day one. What do we expect in return? Endless work ethic. And so we ask students as interns to be on site year-round, not just summer, year-round, a minimum of 2 days a week to be on site at our offices. And then you're forced to juggle your entire curriculum schedule in the other 3 days. It's incredibly difficult. So if you don't like the idea of all that, don't even bother applying because we'll put you through the ringer. But the ones that do, boy, do they have a fast-forward career and they make great money. It's a great path and great, exciting long-term path we've had of the success of the internships. And from a mathematical standpoint, it works out great for Plus as well. We pay all of our interns $15 an hour, I think, so decent money to, if you will, learn, but really invest in your career. So we pay all of our interns $15 an hour. But that's not what's really cool about it is that you're guaranteed that you're going to have that job when you're done. For us, we're paying $15 an hour. We have a dozen interns. Every once in a while, we get a Max Moreau. And what happens for us is we get Max Moreau as an intern, not even as a full-time employee, billing a few hours to a customer at full rates because they're that much of a stud. And I just paid for all my interns by doing it with that one person. It's really good on both sides. You're welcome. Yes, much appreciated. So it's a great program. Anyway. So I kind of went off slide and rambled about a few things, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of background on my background, my history, my passion, and would love to have more of you talk to us. I think we're going to get into a little bit of Q&A, but I want to, before I shut off here, Teresa will be in the back of the room and happy to chat with any of you that are interested as well. Great? A few points that I think a lot of folks don't really completely get. They hear the, professors or their parents give them counseling and what have you. Well, that's well and good, but I'm the dude that's hiring you, right? And what do I want to see is kind of what I'm trying to give you, like the straight talk, if you will. Resumes are certainly incredibly important. Resumes will get you an interview if they're done properly and correctly, and I know that you've got great counsel within Bobby Mo to help you, construct the right message on your resume. So put the time and energy into that is warranted, but know that that doesn't get you a job. It gets you potentially an interview. And I say potentially because there's a lot more work you need to do to get that interview. I mentioned the internships, same sort of thing, an interview for an internship or an interview for a job. I'm talking the same thing here. Your network is incredibly important. And what I don't see enough students doing is investing in their network early. They think that networking is something you do after you graduate and have a job, and then you're networking to help with your profession. And I just think it's too darn late to get started to put your career on fast track if you don't consciously invest in networking as an important part of you and how you present yourself going forward. So how do you network as a college student? Well, you're doing it tonight. You know, I always get nervous when I don't see somebody raise their hand and ask a question when I do a presentation. Like, trust me, you're not going to ask a stupid question. You're here to have experience to learn something, but boy, you learn way faster when it's two-way interaction and dialogue. So, you know, raise your hand, get involved. Reach out to Teresa or any one of the other business-minded folks that are probably in this room. I don't know all the people that are here. It's not just students and professors. There's some other business leaders around. Find out who they are in the room. If you don't know, and I don't know, I'll ask somebody. The first person I talk to is, hey, who's that over there? Do you know them? Can you make an introduction? I'd like to talk to them about whatever. And you folks are students. You have the get-out-of-jail-free card. Nobody is not going to say hello to you.
Yeah.
You're not selling them anything other than maybe brilliant expertise that you can bring and grow their business. So they're going to be responsive. And if they aren't, they're an idiot, and don't waste more time. Move to the next person. So networking is critically important. Another way that I see folks don't network enough is that you've got families. I don't care if you live with your grandmother or if you live with mom and dad. You still have a family. You still have a network that's available to you through your family. Some families may have the fantastic network. Some may not. You may have to work harder. But don't use that as a cripple. Leverage that. Go to your dad. Go to your uncle. Go to your aunt and say, hey, I know you do something in technology. That's what I'm interested in. I'd like to pick your brain. Don't say, who can you make introductions to for me? That's the wrong approach. You say, hey, can I buy you lunch? You know they're going to pick up the check. You're a student anyways, but offer to buy them lunch anyway,
Right.
okay? And say, I'd like to pick your brain on what I'm thinking about as my career path.
Yeah.
And what you get by asking for their expertise is probably a free lunch,
Yeah.
but it's also, they don't just give you their perspective. You asking them, you complimenting them enough to consider their perspective to be of value to you, you almost guaranteed get them to use their network to help you. And their network then becomes your network. So networking as a student is critically important and not happening enough, in my opinion, for most students. The internships, I already talked a lot about that. I think Bobby Moe's fantastic. I am a fan all day long, but your internships are going to be more valuable in the job choices that you have than even your degree. I don't care what the name of the degree is, and I don't care what the name of the university is. Internships matter greatly. You should look at that as a priority, and don't say, I need to do a or an internship between my junior and senior year. You should look for things that are career possible, not job likely in your internship selection process.
That's what I'm saying.
A couple last thoughts, and then I'll
Go
shut
ahead.
up.
No, it's great.
Interviews, when you do get that interview, plan it out. Do your research. Do your homework on who you're interviewing with. There is nothing more infuriating than when I get into an interview and the question, when I give the person I'm interviewing a chance to ask questions, they say, well, tell me about your business, Steve. I don't want to tell you about my business. I know all about it. I expect that if you actually cared about this position, you did the research, which is so readily available these days through your network or certainly through the internet. Do your homework and prep for that, not just on the organization, but on the specific position and the people you're going to be interviewing with. So if you don't know, like you have an interview with Plus coming up, the people that do really well in those interviews are the ones that reach out to Teresa or somebody on her team and say, Teresa, I have an interview coming up next Thursday. Can you tell me a list of all the people who I'm going to be interviewing with, their titles? I'd like to do some research on them. She will tell you. You know why she'll tell you? And she'll probably note on your file that this person is more exciting and interesting because they are doing their homework. we have higher expectations of you coming into the interview as a result of that. So prep for your interviews. And then the last one, in terms of the straight talk, is your image. Your image is many things. I'm a big believer of dressing for success. I'm wearing a suit today. I'm not in the front public image every day, but when I am, I dress as I think is appropriate. If I'm not, I'm not wearing my suit on the basketball court. I'm not even wearing a suit to the office if I'm just working internally. Frankly, we're a tech company. I'm probably wearing shorts and flip-flops more often than not, okay? It's a good thing. It's a good life. But you got to realize when you're interviewing and when you're going out, you're presenting yourself. I always say, think of an interview or any networking experience as if you are going on your first date with a super-duper hot chick or dude. And you want to make a good, positive first impression. Take the time to, groom yourself, put on your best outfit, borrow a suit, whatever you have to do, but make sure it looks like money. And if you're not really good at figuring out whether you look good or not, ask some friends who will give you some straight talk. Mm-hmm. That's what my wife does for me every day. She's like, are you nuts? You're 48 years old. You're about to walk out the door wearing that? That happens twice a week still. I'm 48, so I don't have it. But she does. Again, another good reason to marry her, right? So the other part of that image is the image you have on social, right? So nowadays, when I'm interviewing, just like I said, call Teresa, figure out who you're going to be interviewing with and research them. Guess what? We're doing the same thing to you, except how we're doing it is we're looking at your Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. We're going to check you out every way we can.
And so is Cambridge Analytics.
Yeah.
And Zuckerberg.
So it's absolutely
all three
right.
Are all over that. Yeah.
So be aware. Pay particular attention to your social image when you're into the recruiting process. It's incredibly important because we shouldn't judge you that way, perhaps in your mind.
But we do.
It's there. It's data. We're going to look. It's my company. I want to make damn sure I'm not getting somebody who's cuckoo-cuckoo. And if I can use that data source to give me a better chance of eliminating that cuckoo-cuckoo person from making it in my organization, be darn sure I'm going to use it, and so is every other employer, despite what they say.
It's very sobering. I think it's very brutally honest. I just want to go back to a couple of things you said in terms of doing your homework. I'm an human intelligence officer, so I study the people I'm going to be interacting with, and even applying for this job, and I see some people that I interviewed with, Renee and Jay. Who else is in there I actually interviewed with? Daria Crawley, she's not here. But and Jeff, I think Jeff was in there at one point, but I actually had their bios in a binder. It was kind of spooky. Open it up, and so you're Jay Carson, Central Catholic, yeah. But try to my point is that even if you get to senior levels, it's really a sign of respect, right? To take time to try to understand whose team you might join, if you're so lucky. The other point you said, just last two things very quickly, asking somebody to go out to lunch, ask them questions. Tell me about yourself. And Dale Carnegie said, the great thinker about Salesforce and sales and what have you, said the most sacred thing to a man or woman is his or her name, right? And so when you sit down and ask somebody to say, tell me about yourself, it is such an easy way, even for the shyest people in the world, to kind of say, wow, you really respect me, you dig me. That's cool, I'll tell you about myself. And so I've done that numerous times, and I think it's a very, very good way to create rapport. And the last thing is, once you start building your network for the students that are here, people wonder, how do you keep that, right? So one of my techniques is, if I meet somebody and I have a good interaction with them, if I see an article or something that reminds me of that person, or obviously if I see them in the news, I send them a note. I sent a note to Heather Lyke today. She's the athletic director for Pitt. Very nice lady. I've met her a couple times. She's impressive. She's no Craig Coleman, ladies and gentlemen, but she's sharp at Pitt. And they had an innovation program over at Pitt where they had students do a competition, right? Kind of a hackathon for the sports program. So I wrote Heather a note and I said, Heather, nice, congratulations, great idea. And I saw a couple of our mutual friends. But I do that all the time. And people think, well, that's kind of an aside from your job. I go, no, that is my job. And it'll be your job no matter what you're doing in whatever careers you go into. Here's my last question, then audience, get ready. Max Moreau?
Yeah.
He's more senior than these individuals here. You've got to grow him to the next level. Steve, how do you grow Max Moreau 2.0 and 3.0?
Great question. And if we had the magic answer, we would, be just cloning him.
Yeah.
Okay. There's people that we see as up-and-coming leaders in our organization, and the quick answer to your question is we invest in them. And we invest in many different ways. In the past, and again, companies grow and evolve, I don't think we've invested enough in our own people. And so we're almost a 20-year-old business, and we're talking about how do we invest in our people. And by the way, remember, we're a consulting company. Yeah, we do technical nerd stuff, but we don't make any of that software. We just make it work. So we're really a human capital business. The only thing we're selling is smart people that have experience, expertise, doing what said customer needs or wants. And so for us as a 20-year-old business, having not really done everything we can, could, and should to invest in our people is absolute, I'll say it, we're the cuckoo could chew. We're the ones that are just not thinking straight. And so we've evolved. And Teresa, I've mentioned several times now, her title is a Director of Employee Success. It's not by accident. Everybody's an HR department. We don't have an HR department. That's called a complaint department. We have a employee success department where we are trying to, even with the titles and certainly with the caliber of people that we hire into that team, we are trying to say, Max Moreau, you and others like you, we're going to invest in you. We're going to give you the opportunities, the experiences to crave your thirsty, hungry, aggressive mind to accomplish more and more in your career. And we're going to do everything within our power to give you the chance of doing it here at Plus so that you don't repeat the Steve Smith pattern and job hop 3-4 times, taking the best you can from each one of those organizations and moving on. I'm, again, trying to learn from my own experiences where I felt like I got everything I could. How do we create even more opportunity for those people is a constant question in our business.
Yeah, getting that culture right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have questions from the audience.
Yes. Sorry, what's your name? And
You have microphone? I'm sorry, the microphones are right here. I apologize. If you don't mind getting up, there's a microphone right there. So that put you on the spot. And others have questions, please go ahead and you can line up on either microphone if you have a question.
Hi, my name's Melissa. What specific degrees, concentration, minors do you feel are most beneficial in a consulting company like us?
A great question. Did everybody hear it okay? Okay. So within our organization, we do tend to focus on a technical recruiting path. So we look for computer science type people more often than anything else. By no means is that a black and white answer, though. There's all kinds of gray in between. But computer science, i.e. people that have interest in programming, are ideal candidates for us. People that have a data-focused background, ideal candidates for us. And then what we look for is people that have a innate technical capability in their education, but have the personality to be so much more. Like, we are not an we're consulting. We're going out and meeting with customers on site, building rapport with them, not to execute on just the task of the day, but the project they hired us for, which may be months or years in duration. And then, frankly, everybody is a salesperson. And so we're looking for people that innately do a better job than I do and know what to put on to look presentable, that are going to be very outgoing and personable and communicative and comfortable doing that. The people that don't do well, and I'm blending it with just not the technical background or the degree program, but the personality profile, the people that kill it in our industry are the ones that are super nerdy and don't act and look like it. Right? They act like they are going to be, the life of the party, and the fact that they're freaky smart is almost like a hidden secret. Those are the ones that kill it.
Very good point. Like you and Jim Rock over at Seagrid.
Maybe so.
Very similar. Another question right over here.
Hey, I'm an international student. I've been here close to a year now, and since I've been here, I'm taking cybersecurity. My name's Michael, and I've applied to close to 200, 250 applications, all of them rejections. And the reason I say this is because a lot of the companies, when you apply, they ask a question, do you need sponsorship? What's your company stance on sponsorship? should I put yes or no? And because I can work for 3 years without a sponsorship, and
That's a good point.
a lot of the companies, they require security clearances, something to that effect, and I'm not able to attain that. So what's your stance?
Sure, that's a pretty specific question. I don't know that I completely know the situation enough to give you an honest answer, and you're walking into HR zones that I probably shouldn't speak about on stage. However, that being said, it never shuts me up. I think that you use your network to get another level, despite why you're having challenges, because I can't quite understand why there'd be challenges. Security, credentialed people have a limitless amount of opportunities right now today. I don't think that'll be the case in even 2 or 3 years. But right now today, if you have a security program degree on your resume, you're going to get to interviews. And if you're not, there's probably some underlying reason in how you're presenting yourself. I endlessly applaud the wall of failure, right? Because I had probably hundreds more than that, and it only takes one position to be the right position. So I would say if you're not looking at that, I'd talk to some people in detail about what is and isn't, well, apparently isn't working for you, and use your network to do that. Use your professors. Say, this is how I'm presenting myself, as well as this is the answers I'm getting back. And apply to plus. Because knowing there's an H-1B visa sponsorship scenario, I think you do need to disclose that from an HR legality standpoint. But it doesn't preclude you from working for 3 years. As long as you're clear about that as well, it will probably help you. I would never say misrepresent anything, though. It'll get caught anyways, and then you just be completely out because somebody will know you misrepresented something.
Well said, Steve. I don't know if you've maybe already done this. Maybe you go see Ms. Kishma de Castro-Salas in Career and Professional Development to find, either through her or Mary Gerard in Alumni Affairs, to find someone who's just like you, who's a Robert Morris student, who is needed to get sponsorship, and make sure, maybe you're already doing this, I don't want to be, but maybe find another one, because somebody else probably did something similar.
Yeah.
Find out how they did it as well. But good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
cheers. What other questions we have?
Hi, my name's Calvin. I know you mentioned in your presentation that you expanded into like the CRM field, and you also said that you are a part of the pen testing field. Do you have any plans or wants to expand further into the pen testing and hacking field?
So it's not expanding into it. We do it all day, every day. So the type of work that we do often begins with for what he's talking about is a penetration test to see if we can break into the organization. If you remember, I said we always get in. That typically comes in a couple of different flavors. In terms of what we're doing in a pen test, we will come in through the internet in some way, shape, or form, or we'll come in physically if we have to. Physically can be just dropping a USB drive in the lunchroom that says something provocative on it. Inevitably, somebody's going to pick that up, stick it into their computer, and we're in. So it's social awareness type things that we're testing in our pen test, as well as the firewall protection that you've got. So all of those things should be tested. We do it all day, every day with our customers. What I was saying, though, is that pen tests, it is the tip of the spear. It is not what makes an organization safe. It is almost a paid sales cycle. Your auditors as an organization typically mandate that you do a pen test on an annual basis. We strongly recommend if you hired us this year, you don't hire us next year. You need fresh perspective on who does your pen test, because everybody's got their different styles and approaches in doing that work. So when you find an organization that's been working with one company doing the pen test the last 5 years, I'll get into them in a half hour. Easy breezy. The reason I say it's tip of the spear, though, is that doesn't make you secure. It just proves that you're not. And so all the work that we do beyond that is actually where the practice, frankly, is financially viable. It's the much longer-term, multi-month, multi-year relationships to develop a security program that ensures the organization has done everything within reason to protect the data within that organization, the systems, the processes, and the data. And I say everything within reason. I always say that slowly, because too often people think, hey, you got hacked and you had a pen test. You got hacked and you have a security program in place, or you have a Ciso in place. Fire the Ciso, CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, for those that don't understand that term. It's just such an easy answer, and it may be what the street requires if it's a publicly traded company, but it's more often than not a stupid decision. So,
Thank you.
no worries.
Jay.
Hi, I'm Jay. I'm a senior.
What kind of senior?
A super senior.
Super senior.
This is my 18th year as a senior. We had Steve Wozniak on this stage a while back that you're on right now, and you're way funnier than Steve Wozniak.
I'll take it.
Have you had an occasion to meet that guy who didn't promote you now that you've been successful?
Good.
No, I actually don't even remember his name. I don't, to be honest with you. It's like other things, whether it's somebody who's scorned you in business, which, I guess you could call that. I look at it as a positive thing. Or it could be somebody that's scorned you in a personal life, and those ones are sometimes a lot harder. If you can find a way to use it as a lesson and use it as an inflection point, then use it as a source of anger and revel in it. It's so easy to say and when you're on stage, but it's damn hard to do in reality. But if you can continually say it out loud or repeat it to your wife on a regular basis, maybe it's like the therapy you need to not revel in the negativity.
Well, Steve, we have a surprise for you. We tracked that guy down. Jonathan, move the curtain.
Wouldn't that be great?
That would be great.
That would be awesome.
I think you'd punch him in the nose, but that's just me. I'm just saying.
No, I'd give him a hug. Frankly, if I'd stayed at PwC and been partner, the reality is that they make a great living and it's a great career and those are great organizations, and I still think PwC is a fantastic organization. But I would have gotten very comfortable and compliant because the compensation and frankly the cool international business world, it's sexy, it's enticing. I would have stayed there. And not to be too cocky, but I've accomplished 50 times what I would have there on my own. It just took 19 years to do it.
And I got a feeling you got a heck of a lot more equity and plus than you would have had in PwC. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So let me just get one last question before we close it out on this wonderful Friday afternoon. Ellen Mikowski.
Hi, my name's Ellen. Thank you for coming today. This has been great. This is a time of year when so many of us get questions. Students are getting close to graduation, and some of them are starting to doubt their degree choice. So you talked about your background, which I love, and how you've been so successful in the technology field. So my question is, do you still look at resumes of people who don't have the right degrees, the technical degrees? And if so, what catches you about their resumes or their interactions that makes you want to bring them in and talk with them?
Well, Ellen, I think that is a fantastic question and a great one to end the discussion on, and I have really strong opinions, although it's one of those things, frankly, I think you need to ask 50 people and you get 49 different opinions on it. So this is just one person's perspective on that. And I am biased. I have a phys ed major and a dance minor. I'm saying it slow because it's so not what I do. And for me, I couldn't get the paperwork, my resume couldn't get me an interview to save my life. So I suspect that's the obstacle that you're alluding to, although my case may be a bit more extreme than maybe what you're alluding to. And so it really required me to go to grad school and get another degree. And I bet the ones that run the finance department here at Bobby & Mo will be very happy with that answer. But that's not my answer. My answer is right back to the network, right? I will hire people. So your resume gets you the interview, or your network gets you the interview. That's what I said earlier, and I believe it passionately. So if you can use your network to still get the interview, then your personality and what you can do to demonstrate work ethic, which is so hard to demonstrate in an interview, is what will get you the job. If I can look at traits of a personality profile, such as I don't have a degree in computer science, but I am a motorhead. I like tearing apart my 1973 Monte Carlo. Or I'm super into music. I'm into one of these, social gaming things, like I'm a huge online gamer and exceptional at it. I know those sounds like strange things, but I know after doing this for 30 years that those personality profiles that are really good at being a motorhead, being a musician, or being a online gamer, those ones do really well in my company. So use the network to get an interview and showcase your passions, your interests that are harder to get out. And if you can do something to showcase your work ethic. I always say, like how many of you, first of all, hands up real quick. How many of you are students? Raise your hand. How many of you are going to finish in 4 years? Actually, if you're not going to finish in 4 years, keep your hand up. How many are not going to finish in 4 years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm saying about a quarter of the room. I'm making up numbers because I can't count that quickly. Okay? In my opinion, work ethic is something that's so hard for us as the employer to figure out. We use whatever tricks we can. One of my tricks is I always pay attention to how long it took somebody to get their undergraduate degree. Because it could be an indicator that you are slacking off by taking 5 years or more to get your degree. It may not be that you're slacking off, though. It may be that you've got other life circumstances, but I'm a moronic employer who's working off of a piece of paper. So what I'm saying is, if you are one of those people and you're concerned about that reflection, you best have an answer that you give before the question is asked.
The good news, they're probably integrated. Are you guys doing? They're doing a graduate degree and undergraduate degree.
Slackers.
And they're doing it and most of them are doing it in 5 rather than 6.
So, total slackers then.
So I just want to make sure you don't leave with the wrong opinion. So most of the people you saw here,
no,
folks
that's killer. That's great. And those,
just the opposite.
To the opposite. That's exactly the things we're looking for. Those people tells me huge, strong work ethic.
Karen,
311 program is what we call it here?
Steve, actually, they do it straight. 311, they don't have to go anywhere. They can do it all here.
Yeah.
Dr. Paulette says they're doing it 4.5 years because they go to summers.
4.5.
Yeah, they'll do it in 4.5. So it's just
killer.
To your point. To
me, that should be like screamed on your resume. It should be the thing. It's not just casual getting this and this, because it should be like the thing that presents you, because it'll draw my attention as a prospective employer. Teresa, any other thoughts on that? Considering that you're the one screening most of these things on a regular basis.
Sure. I would just add that a very recent example of a business analyst whom we hired with our growing Salesforce team actually came to us with an anthropology degree. I will also add that our COO also has a history degree. And so we very much...
And our EVP of sales does not have any degree.
So we very much prioritize work ethic, integrity, that desire to achieve success at all costs when we're looking at potential employees.
Thank you very much. With that word, I'm going to bring up a lady who has great work ethic and also runs a great program in cyber. Dr. Karen Paulette, you want to present something to our guests? Oh, that's nice. I want one of those.
Our CIS department, our dean, and on behalf of our group, the Top Secret Colonials, can I have the kids in the room that are members of TSC? We're a cyber security awareness group.
Cool.
On campus, raise your hands for me. They're the one on the wrong side of the room.
There's always one.
That's super nice of you.
This is one of our kids.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hey, Karen, come up here and get a picture together. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We have one other gift we want to give. Is it ready? Xavier thought I was going to give it to him in the room over there. 1973 Plymouth. So, Karen, why don't you pop up here? We'll get a picture together real quick.
Great.
Yep. And we're going to make one more presentation right here. Huh?
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. So hold your applause. So there's one item. This is kind of our secret sauce. Thank you, Xavier, for coming up here. So on behalf of the university, the Board of Trustees, our RMU community, I want to present you with this.
How cool is that? Real time production, too.
So everybody, it's a picture of me and my twin brother, Steve. And it has the plus brand and also RMU, and it's symbolic of our partnership and friendship. So we'll hold it up this way with Joe and take one more picture inside the picture. All right. Everybody have a great Friday.
Good
God
stuff.
bless you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks,
you,
Dr.
Steve.
Howard.
Thank you very
Classy
much.
as ever, sir.
Well done.